Any communications or public comment from the board on anything? Anything from the public? I will just state that Carol, actually, Archambault had sent me a, after Mr. Rogers made the request for information and the school committee had their meeting on November 28th, as I mentioned that they were going to be sent, and I'll forward that on to you folks, just budget information from them, so that you'll have that.
Good.
And that was the documents that they were hoping would answer some of, or hopefully Mr. Rogers, some of Mr. Rogers' questions were answered within the context of the documents. I did not check the mailbox. I have no idea if there's any new communications. So I'll just get right into the agenda items. Hopefully you all had a chance to open Brandon Kibbe's email and see the open space report.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone have any questions about anything in the report? And in particular, the recommendations at the end of the report, because it would be my expectation tonight that I would ask for a motion to write a letter of support as requested, and focus that letter on the recommendations within the report. But if anybody has any questions or comments on it, it would be, now would be a good time to bring them up.
I do have one question regarding an assumption I'm making. The assumption is that this rewrite does not have any direct financial effect on the town.
That would be a safe assumption. The purpose of the report is to have it on file with the state so that if there's an opportunity to apply for grant funding through the state, that would already be on the books in the state. That's basically one of the reasons why they were able to apply for the grant for the Lane property, was because they had that as part of their plan to grow recreation and open space and things like that.
And that was my assumption number two, that by doing this, the town would have an opportunity to apply for grant money. And the grant money is a no-lose proposition. We either don't get it or we do. We do, it's a good thing. We don't get it, we're left to where we were before. But there's no cost.
There's no cost up front, and I think basically it's just a guide for the town in terms of identifying the priorities as identified by members of those committees, and I think it included planning, parks, conservation, open space. I'm not sure who else it might have included, but basically so that if funds became available, what were the priorities of that group of people in terms of identifying direction that they wanted to go, so that if money became available, or if an opportunity became available to take all of those little pocket pieces of property that the town owns throughout, and turn those into pocket parks, that might be something that would be potentially low-hanging fruit. So it might be something that might come up, and yes, there might be some cost associated with doing that, but that would become part of the budget process.
Sure. Okay.
So there's nothing at this time that would be an expenditure that we would have to be concerned with.
Good, thanks.
Okay.
I was concerned about the part they had for the Conservation Preservation Act, that I think I'm good at the CPA, the tax implications of that. I looked at it very briefly, and what I read seemed to indicate it would increase the taxes.
You're right, it would, and I think that was on the plan in 2011 as well. I think I went back and I read that plan. And I believe that their plan was to try to bring it to a vote again to see if there was support for it within the town to do that. That would be a completely separate issue. It does have tax implications, and if we wanted to make a recommendation at that time, I suppose we don't have to make a recommendation in total of the document, other than to say that it's a good blueprint for the direction for the town going forward. But that Community Preservation Act has come up in the past. It's basically seen as a way to go after or to have available funding for when something comes up. Again, like if there was a right of first refusal and the town wanted to participate, they wouldn't have necessarily have the funding available. The CPA would make that be. But I have no idea whether the town has any feel for that at all. Before it would ever happen, there would be public hearing. It would be a big change.
Yeah.
It would be a big change.
And the key here is that with the Community Preservation Act, as I recall, the 2011 involved a vote by the town. So the voters, the property owners have an avenue to weigh in to see whether or not they wish to opt for it. So
Yes.
that removes any issue I have with it.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have to come to the town. It would have a tax implication, and it, and again, it's been on the plan for a long time to investigate, try to see if there's energy for it, but it doesn't necessarily, and again, unfortunately, since I can't open it up and look at it right now, I'm going to say, and I'll take another look at it before I write a letter to make sure to make my language not that, yes, and we're going to recommend the Community Preservation Act. I think that the letter of support is just to say that we think that they've done a really good job of identifying the actual priorities. The CPA isn't the
Okay.
priority. The CPA to me would be a way to address the priorities.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
I have one question,
Sure.
Jerry. In the recommendation goal 1.c, the seek management assistance, and the point mentions contract professional licensed forest certificate forest stewardship plans for all several town conservation areas to identify management needs, opportunities, and it says ongoing. And funding source, it says revolving funds. What does that mean?
the Conservation Commission has responsibility for a lot of the town lands, and actually, I should probably call on the town manager to add, at least let me know if I'm way off track here. But there are revolving funds that are available through, and budget items that are available through the Conservation Commission, and they already have a forestry management plan, so it is ongoing, so they're updating that as they go. And the funds that are used to do that, and maybe I should ask Karen or Heather to, maybe if one of you could answer the question about where that gets paid for.
Conservation,
Yeah, the forestry management plan,
the timber revolving.
timber revolving, okay, so basically they
Pretty much just sell the timber to finance that.
Right, so basically, when people go in and they're doing right, and I don't know if that's part of the clearing or not, that the forestry management is separate from the timber, or is that all tied up together?
The management plan that they're going to be writing, I think that was through a grant agency.
Okay. So basically, that's the revolving account that the Conservation Commission has, and that's what they're using it for, or some of it for.
Okay.
And again, that's ongoing in the sense that they've already been doing that. And actually, I remember seeing a lot of complaints about the, one of the town forests, but there was an interesting argument going back and forth. But I don't understand any of it. Any other questions or comments, concerns on the document? Do we have a motion of any sort? Do we have a feeling one way or the other about writing a letter of support?
I will move that the committee vote to support the process, and if I can, just nominate you to write the letter in support of of the process.
And that you'll let me sign it on behalf of the committee?
Absolutely.
That would be
With
that would be the
blue-
motion,
with-
yeah.
You choose the color ink?
Okay, and Jay seconded that?
Second, yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye, okay. All right, status of member projects. I know that you had hoped to be ready with a presentation tonight, and we're not quite there.
Correct.
And given that we're about to come into the budget season, I'm not sure that, and this is talking particularly about the dashboard, the budget dashboard, that we're hoping to have a presentation on at some point. I'm not sure that we're going to get to it before, probably not before the end of this year for sure, since we're already there. Did you have anything that you wanted to say on it?
No, I just haven't had the time to meet with Karen and the town manager just to review it.
Right, and my sense was too that you wanted to handle it in a workshop setting instead of in this type of a format. So it may be that when we get ready to do that, that we can just set that up as a non-televised workshop, just so that,
That's fine.
okay. So we can play with it without confusing everybody. So we'll revisit that. I'm just trying to, as I'm doing that, I'm looking over at the budget calendar. I'm thinking we may not get to it until the spring, so you have some time. I know that Karen's going to be busy because, you know, she's going to be pulling together the budget numbers, so she's probably going to, although some of the information I think will be coming up as the budget progresses anyway. So we'll see how that goes. Does anybody else have any projects that they wanted to speak to? Okay, I hear crickets. Okay. Not that we hadn't planned on addressing any of the other projects this evening, as it was. I don't know if people also had an opportunity to review terminology and definitions again or any more. I did not. I had no. No? Okay, so we'll just go straight to setting the budget season calendar with the town manager. This was going to be the highlight of the evening for me, anyway.
For all of us.
Well, actually, it came up several times at Charter Review last night when we were trying to figure out when the warrant was coming up.
Yes. So before you is a draft schedule, and with both all the associated dates from now until town meeting and town election, and also a schedule with different departments that come to meet with the finance committee from in February and March. So I tried just to do it similar to last year. Last year didn't want both Monty Tech and the Lunenburg Public Schools on the same night, so we split those. Kept fire and police on the same night. So that's what I have.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, you'll notice that beginning, not until February 21st? Okay. At the beginning of February, excuse me, I'm sorry. I have water. Is that school vacation week, and do we have everybody here?
Oh, which one is it?
February
21st.
Won't affect me at all.
I think it is school vacation week typically.
I'm here. I know that.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm here. I know that.
Okay, very good.
But doesn't it start the 14th with the town manager budget presentation?
That does. I think I was mostly just looking at
Yeah,
the
The budget
21st
reviews.
jumped out at me, so.
yeah.
Nope, I can make,
That date is per, the charter, the mid-February. Would, I may suggest if we can put in some additional dates that aren't maybe a Thursday, because of last year's schedule, we got really held up by all the snowstorms. If we knew some dates in advance that everyone could make it, we could just have those as alternate nights in
Sure.
the schedule.
I think we can do that. I don't know if you want to tie up a meeting room to,
It would only be, right before, we could find them, if it was I see what you're saying.
Yeah, okay, I mean, because if we set the meeting time now as a, you know, like, as a date, as a makeup date, then we'd have to have a space.
Would we be able to meet at the middle school or high school, like collaborative rooms?
We can inquire about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's at least two right there.
But if you wanted to meet a night that wasn't a Thursday night, is there a particular night that you would want to?
Just not a Tuesday night. Those are selectmen's meeting nights.
Works for me.
All right, well, our options are going to be, then Monday or Wednesday. Unless you want to do Friday nights, but I can't imagine that, you know.
I would go for Monday.
You would go for Monday?
Yeah, me
I'd be
too.
better for
Wednesday's
Monday
an iffy
too.
day for me.
Mondays? Okay.
Mondays as a full day.
Monday work.
And I know this room's busy because the planning board is meeting, and I'm sure that they're going to be, yeah.
Are we able to
Busy.
meet maybe during one of their meetings if to make it up, or is that like a no, don't do that type thing? Like if we
During
went,
when planning
whoever
boards?
was presenting and they like say there was a snow day and it was school committee, like go to a school committee meeting to make it up, or no because then they would postpone them.
I mean, that would be up to the finance committee, but I think it's more for the public and public notice. This is a finance committee meeting.
Sure.
It
Right.
might be
Okay.
difficult to
I was just
break up a
trying to, yeah,
meeting.
I was just trying to figure out space wise and dates.
Yeah, basically, the only way that we're going to be in trouble would be if there's an issue at the very beginning, I would think, because, well, not necessarily. Okay, so basically what we're saying is that if
If we had
there's
snow
a
dates
snowstorm
for
for
these.
2/14, then we would be doing the budget presentation instead that following Monday. We would just anticipate that.
Correct. Yeah.
And perhaps I could ask the Council on Aging Director too. Maybe the senior center would be another
A
spot we
meeting
could
place?
hold.
Sure.
If that's the case, if we would reschedule that quickly, could we do that and still meet the requirements of the open meeting law?
Right, and that's a problem,
40
because
hours.
basically we would have to, well, if,
We could
yeah,
post
'cause you
it
could
as a
post it.
snow date. I would think
if
we
there's
could
a snow,
cancel it.
right.
So we
Cancel the
would
meeting.
post it in anticipation of perhaps having to use it.
Right.
Okay.
Either that,
So
or
that-
the other thing that could potentially happen would be that you close town hall. That would be the situation that we wouldn't be able to meet. So if you close town hall and then you post to the website, would that be sufficient, or do we have to make sure that well, actually, if it gets to, it has to be at this point, the bulletin board, right?
If it were canceled,
Yes.
You mean?
Or if the new one was scheduled. Like, we couldn't post the schedule for a Monday night meeting once we know that the Thursday night meeting is canceled. We would have to post it before then.
right.
Can't you
We'd have to
post
post
the,
it by
the
Thursday.
original day and the snow date in the same?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
But you'd have to post two separate agenda.
Yes,
Would.
but that's what I would do, because that
One
way
would
we
be
are
a snow
compliant.
date agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
One would be.
That way we are compliant.
Okay.
We're covered.
Then that's fine, and we would just
Okay.
always post it as the meeting is, and then if the meeting is canceled on Monday as well,
Then we'd cancel.
then we'd have to figure out how to
Meeting
switch.
start
We
from
have a
scratch.
problem.
Well, no, then we could potentially have a meeting on a Thursday and a Monday.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
So that we would just use those Mondays to make up that way.
yeah.
And then,
We'll
hope-
have no snow, and then we don't have to worry.
that would be,
about it.
that would be
very nice.
sweet.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Save us money.
Would be good for our budget.
Yeah, it would.
All right, so, and then basically it would just be as people, as you're scheduling with the departments and the committees, they would just need to know that, to be
Those are
prepared
the
for
snow
either
dates.
of those nights.
Yeah.
And then the request I'm going to have, and I don't know if it makes sense to do this, or if we even can. When we get to the public hearing, I already know that the planning board has a bunch of stuff. The charter review committee will have a bunch of stuff. And I'm not sure I want to do the whole public hearing all at one time.
do 2 nights? Or let's do financial articles?
Well, I guess my question is it possible to split it so that the planning board could run their public hearing, or the portion of the public hearing that has to do with their items, their recommendations, or whatever, and we could participate in that, and it would be on a different night? Yeah?
You're talking financial?
No, what happens, it would basically, by charter, the public hearing, which I had never realized before, but we're the only ones tasked with a public hearing to cover the warrant articles in the town meeting. So regardless of the warrant article, we host the public hearing.
Oh.
Which could make for a very long night
Yeah.
about stuff that we know nothing.
Right.
So, which is fine, but I'm not sure that, and you might have a better handle on what the planning board is coming up with, but I understand that there's 5 ballot questions that they're going to be first putting on the warrant for approval there before it gets put on the ballot?
There'd be 5 related questions that they're proposing on the town meeting warrant, as I understand
Right.
it, which they're asking the selectmen to also put on the town ballot, the annual town election
Right.
ballot.
And I know they're having public hearings over that.
Yes.
But I guess that wouldn't count. We would still have to we would still have to do the public hearing for that?
Your public hearing, I think what you really want to go over is your recommendation on those articles, and I think it's a nice feature to have that as part of the public hearing, for the public to know what that article is all about. So, trying to look at the schedule when planning comes to the very beginning of the budget hearing schedule. If we...
Because actually, in that regard, I would almost want to hear from the planning committee, not the planning director,
Okay.
if the planning committee is the one that's putting it forward.
Yep, the articles, yeah.
Yeah.
They asked the land use director to submit them. Yep.
Planning board.
Planning board. Because basically, they're the ones that are going to be making a recommendation, and it would be... All right, well, we've got time to talk about that. I'm sure they're having enough pain over this anyway, so...
It's a lot to consider, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. And then the charter, yeah, it's going to be, long night. Okay. We might want to think about whether or not there's a way to split it in 2 nights. And if,
Possible to start earlier than 7?
we did that last time, and it still didn't help, and there still weren't as many articles.
Yeah.
So split it like in half, 2 different dates.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. And then, but I don't, okay, so if we have,
It has to be, the public hearing has to be so many days before,
Yeah.
so we'd have to work
It'd be
that out.
the
And we don't
21st.
have a lot of, the warrant closes the week prior. So
Okay.
there's not a lot of time.
so if we did it in that week, assuming that we could, if
So
we
the
took
28th?
We could do Wednesday and Thursday.
the 27th and 28th, or we could do Monday and Thursday.
No, yes, you could do Monday and Thursday.
Assuming that, like we don't have a snow day on the 21st.
Did you still want to know when February vacation was, or no?
I'm sorry.
Did you still want to know when February vacation was?
Sure,
It's the 18th to the 22nd,
okay.
but
Okay,
I don't know if that affects anybody.
all right.
Well, I don't have any plans yet.
You never know.
You never know.
Okay.
George?
I just got a question. Heather, on March 11th, one of the activities, it's Town Caucus. I don't remember what that is.
That's for the election, that's nomination of candidates for the
Oh, okay.
town election.
Yeah, remember when I said, is anybody running for office?
Yep.
That's when you want to go,
Okay.
town caucus.
And if I can ask a question, for the proposed budget hearings, do we get materials ahead of time to look at, or do we go and just get information right then?
Yes, so you'll receive a full budget recommendation when I do my presentation.
Okay.
And then in advance of those meetings, usually the department heads, if they have a PowerPoint, they provide that.
Great.
But sometimes very short notice.
Yes.
Usually not as very
Like the same
Very-
day.
Yeah.
Well, I think, right.
They're like,
Well, basically,
night out.
you're going to have the whole
Numbers.
thing.
The budget reviews.
And then what will happen will be when departments and committees come in, they'll have a presentation that really gets into the particular lines, what it is that they're looking for, what their goals are for the year, what they've been doing this year, whether, if there's an ask for items over and above what is currently in the budget for them, they'll usually try to get into the specifics of those requests. So it's really a chance for different departments to review what they've been doing. And really, it lets people who are watching get a good sense of what's going on in the town and where the town is headed in terms of each of the different departments.
Okay.
So you'll have, and you'll probably, excuse me, I don't know what, you'll have the main document that you'll be going back and forth to frequently, because as questions come up or discussion comes up, invariably, but how many pages is your budget document?
Lots.
It's lots. So basically, trying to see how it fits in with everything else is what we're really going to be coming down to at the end. And it's, so I would just recommend that you have every night. The other information is really them supporting what their request is.
Okay.
It's not changing the numbers. The numbers are still the same that are in the budget that you're going to see.
Okay, perfect.
is it possible though to ask if we can have their information like 48 hours in advance, even if it's just through email?
We can ask that, yeah.
Because that would be, I think, helpful just to like at least look it over
Yeah, we can, certainly, there's,
prior than like a couple hours or 24 hours.
yeah, we can definitely ask for them to send it via email.
That'd be great.
And then you usually will. So if you have it, you'll usually send it. So if they give it to you and you want to either send it to us or have people send it to me, and I'll broadcast it, that's
Distribute
fine. And if you're talking to any of the departments, then you can also ask them to forward any of their material. The other thing that we should probably do, that we never do, is put out copies of the budget. So when people are trying to follow along, I know
Yeah.
that people like to have something in hand. The only thing I'm particularly concerned about is making sure the budget document itself is available. Usually the department people will come with extra handouts. So, trying to think if there's anything else to. So, all right, so then basically we're, and I don't know whether we want to do the budget items last in terms of the public hearing, or I guess we'll wait until we find out who might be available to, I guess we'll wait until we know what the warrant articles are, because I don't know what else might be coming up. Is there, you don't have any sense of anything other than budget?
Just capital.
Okay. All right, any questions about the schedule? Anybody look and see something that jumps out at them and says, you're not going to be available? Anything that we need to be concerned about at this time?
Actually, in April, let me check in April, I've got a trip.
Yeah, it's hard to believe we're already talking about April. But actually, April, you'll be fine. By April, we're done. So we will have done everything that we can do
Okay.
by March 28th. The Finance Committee report will have to have such a fast turnaround that it won't be something that we'll discuss after that. We'll have to have been working on it prior to that.
Perfect.
Sure.
The post office is open on Good Friday?
Good Friday?
Just double checking, because it's when you are dropping everything off to the post office. It's Good Friday?
Yeah, it
not,
should
we
be
can-
open. It's not a federal holiday.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Remember, we used to not have school that day, so I don't remember.
I'm sorry, John, you were going to say?
Well, because of the very quick turnaround with the Finance Committee report, should we just plan to have some time at the end of each budget review for that report to just discuss the main points? As a way to sort of accumulate our knowledge and weave that into the report?
That sounds like a good plan.
Particularly if we get some advanced knowledge, we could be able to sort of have it in mind. And so the addendum to the meetings might be brief, succinct.
Yeah, it should be. I think the, I'm trying to think, between the time you present your initial budget and the final public hearing, how frequently have there been changes in the numbers? Or do we anticipate the town report? We don't anticipate the town report to be written based on the numbers you present in February.
There's certain numbers that we receive later than others, like so for health insurance may come in later, and final numbers for renewal for insurances. So, but yeah, depends on the year.
All right, but those would be
Those are the usually ones that come to always later than the others. But so we use estimates when we go into it.
okay.
And the key word there is usual. We've been working with this for several years, where there's some variables that just don't come into focus until way late in the process.
Right. And, yeah, but I think basically if we, and maybe what we should do is, if we have an opportunity to take some time and just take out last year's report.
Yep.
And determine whether that's the format that we want to continue to follow. If there's another way we want to do it, so that when we are summarizing at the end of each of the meetings, we're fitting it into some sort of a template.
Sure.
And then all that might have to change is when we start talking about, yes, it represents this percentage of the budget. Well, no, not anymore. So that would be.
Yep.
But that would be just for us, so.
Sure.
All right. Right, so everybody rest up. And, no, actually, it looks like capital planning is, wow, you guys are really just moving.
It's been a great process this year.
Good. All right, is there anything else on the plan that you want to go over?
No, nothing for me. No additional questions?
I don't think so, and you don't think that there'd be a problem with carrying or, I guess if you, maybe what we'll do is when we get to the point where the articles have been submitted, we'll make a determination on whether or not we need 2 nights for the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Will that give us enough time? Or do you want to just go ahead and schedule 2 nights for the public hearing?
It would give us, well, it closes Thursday, so we'll know how many articles on a Thursday before. But, so if it were,
Oh, so we won't even have 20 minutes to see all of the warrant
Right.
articles.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think. Closes at the end of business that day, so.
Right, so we won't know. So, yeah, okay, so we'll just go ahead and schedule it for that Monday. I was just thinking if the planning board wanted to do their own, since they usually meet on Monday nights and have this room, they could just, go ahead and do it. So, and then we will sit out there and then they can, we can make our recommendations. But that's fine. We're happy to host wherever, whenever. Then if that's it on that, then I guess what we'll do is before you sit down, do you have any town manager or financial director reports?
I do have an update. We signed on with ClearGov.
Okay.
So
Oh,
with that
good.
dashboard, budget dashboard. So if you, I
Great.
don't know if the internet's back up, but you could log on to cleargov.com, type in Lunenburg in the search. Right now, they have up until 2017 data on the website, and they're in the process of putting 18s.
Oh,
So
excellent.
you'll,
Wow.
it's really, I think, a really good visual aspect of the budget and provides comparison data to other communities, comparable communities.
Yep.
Nice.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Is
Okay.
is there gonna be a link on our webpage?
There
for
will be.
people? Nice.
Yes.
Yep.
And we're also going to be using them for you're not going to see this end of it. Karen and I will be using it, and the departments will be as well, a budget software that they developed, which is more, it's going to be a much better process than Excel.
Oh, super.
Yes.
Nice.
Does this link to the DOR data?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is what, a head-end application for the DOR?
Yes, they're using DOR's data, but we also upload it from Munis. So there'll be two views, a native view they call it, which is how we categorize our accounts. Because DOR, they're not apples to apples, all the accounts, how it's reported to DOR. So there'll be both views.
Oh, great. ClearGov.com, okay. Wonderful.
Exciting stuff.
I'm sorry?
I think you'll like it.
Oh, yeah.
I like looking at it too.
Yeah, it's nice aesthetic,
Looking
yeah.
forward to it.
Yeah.
So,
That costing?
Heather,
That was
sorry.
supposed to be free, I thought.
No, that's, the salary
membership fee.
benchmarking was free.
Oh, okay. ClearGov costs,
The, that portion, the insights for this year, I think was around 2,000 for the year.
For how long? How long do we, is it an annual subscription?
It's an
thing?
annual
year.
subscription. Yeah.
I just had a question. How are we doing with the free cash?
Free cash was certified,
Yeah, what was it? What's the amount?
1.512 and some odd dollars. I know, 1.5 million.
Okay.
so what do we leave on the table?
We haven't used any.
Oh, no, that's free cash. No, I'm on, what am I on, new growth? New growth, what do we leave on the table for new growth? Was that certified?
It was the final excess levy capacity that we left was 53,000.
53,000? Okay.
And our tax rate was certified this week, so tax bills will be going out.
Right, and the tax rate,
Yay!
and the tax rate is lower,
It is lower, but the assessed values are.
is higher, right, right. So, just so,
I think it's $1.02 lower than last.
yeah. It's always one of those things that I think people get confused by. They just assume that their tax bill is going up 2.5%, but it's not necessarily.
Yeah.
Because all the houses they're building are nicer than mine. So hopefully my assessment is going
You,
Yeah.
down. We'll see.
This was a reval year, so they go out and do an audit of all the evaluations, and
Okay.
so,
You know, which part of town was reevaluated?
the whole town, I believe,
I
right?
thought it was split up.
I'm sorry.
I thought it was split up in thirds every 3 years. Don't do they do the whole town every 3 years?
Well, I think they're gonna change it, but I know that this year, and I'm not real familiar with the process, Carol more is than
Yeah.
me, but this year, it was a full valuation, I know that.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's, moving on to, does anyone have any committee or department reports? Hannah?
I do. So that new show or TV spot that the school committee, that the school were doing.
Yep.
Is now on the Lunenburg Public Access channel. It is also playing on channels 9 on Tuesday and Thursdays at 6:30, Friday at 8:04, Saturday at 4 p.m., Sunday at 6:30 p.m. It is called the Knights Roundtable with Dr. Kate Burnham, the superintendent of schools. They had their first episode air, so if you didn't catch it, you can go on the YouTube channel. It has great information regarding Interface. Interface is a town-wide program, meaning not just for students and their families, but anyone in the town of Lunenburg. It is a helpline, not a hotline, that gives people of Lunenburg the information that they need to help those of mental health wellness. They walk you through the process of getting help and find the right help that is covered through your insurance. Using this program can save you from being on a 6-month waiting list down to a 2-week period instead. This program does not cost the citizens of Lunenburg any money as of right now. The first year was funded through fundraising and a grant. There's a 2-year contract, so I think they're looking to do some fundraising for the second year. And if you want to give donations, I'm sure you can just contact the superintendent. Maybe we can find a way to get donations in another way. That would be great to make it easier for everybody. Then on, sorry, this is going to be a while. December 2nd was National Special Education Day. I just want to take a minute to say thank you to the special educator teachers, service providers, and paraprofessionals. Thank you for all your hard work. As a parent, this is greatly appreciated. On December 5th, the primary students were treated to the program Brand New Day. This focused on encouraging students to be resilient, to stand up for themselves and others. Themes of making connections, building confidence, developing empathy, and respecting oneself and others were embedded in this presentation. On Tuesday, December 11th, Lunenburg Middle High School will host the Winter Chorus Concert? Choir concert? Sorry, choir, can't read at the moment. The Lunenburg Middle High School Winter Band Concert will be held on Thursday, December 13th. Both events are a wonderful opportunity for students to showcase their skills that have developed during their time in band and chorus in Lunenburg Public Schools. Both concerts will be held in the auditorium and will start promptly at 7 p.m. Both performances are approximately 45 minutes in length. Turkey Hill Elementary will have a Christmas chorus and instrument concert on Friday, December 14th at 7 p.m. It will include 5th grade band and chorus members. Getting there, promise. The Blizzard Bag Advisory Committee will be holding forums on Monday, December 17th to answer questions to address any concerns of students, staff, and faculty. Rooms locations are to be determined. Student forums will be held during lunch period. Faculty forums will be held at the Lunenburg Middle High School for Lunenburg Middle School and the high school, sorry, at 2:30. And for the Turkey Hill Elementary School and the primary school, they will be held at the primary school at 3:30. Parent forum will be held at the Lunenburg Middle High School at 6:30. School committee meets on December 19th, 2018, and the superintendent issues final recommended budget to school committee. Meeting is held at the Lunenburg Middle School Collaborative Room, number D132. Kickoff to school vacation with the PTO come and go at Dragonfly Garden Cafe is on December 21st from 11:30 to 2:30 at 3 Lancaster Ave. This is an early release day. The PTO come and go is going to be a lot of fun. If you only have a few minutes to stop before going away, grab some hot chocolates for the road. 50% of all hot chocolate sales from 11:30 to 2:30 will be donated to the Lunenburg PTO. From 11:30 to 12:30, School Resource Officer McNamara and his police dog Hank will be there, as well as Fire Chief Sullivan, to hang out with our Lunenburg Middle High School students that plan to stop by. From 12:30 to 2:30, you can listen to holiday stories read by some of the finest community members that this town has. The Lunenburg Middle High School Library Media Specialist, Pam Valley, has been chosen to serve as a Central Area Co-Director on the 2018 to 2019 Executive Board of Massachusetts School Library Association. Congratulations, Pam. December 21st is an early release day. It is also the start of December school vacation. Schools will reopen on Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019. There you go. That's my updates.
You're busy over there.
Yes.
Anyone else have,
I have a couple.
go for it, John.
But it's tame compared to Hannah. Capital Planning Committee, first of all, to set the stage, and a thank you to Heather for passing on a link. The UMass Collins Center, working with the Lincoln Institute, had a conference, I don't even know where, but it was the Capital Planning Conference, and and Heather was good enough to send all of us a link to that, to the presentations made at that conference. It was pretty, I've looked at several of the presentations. It really opened my eyes about what ways Lunenburg can actually improve the capital improvement request process. I'll mention two examples. One is other sources of revenue, other sources of funds for supporting capital improvement requests, which I did not know about. And number two, and this is a biggie, I think, is ways to design a strategy and a plan for long-term use of financing. And I'll get to that in a minute and explain how it's how important that potentially is. But anyway, just thank you very much. Really useful so far. And I'm not. That doesn't imply that it's going to stop being useful tomorrow, but it's been very useful. Capital Planning Committee met a couple weeks ago and tentatively approved 9 capital requests for approximately $650,000. That is not formally approved. We meet on, I believe, January 8th, and go through this process again. I did review it again after having mulled it over. I want to focus on a couple of highlights of the requests that are tentatively approved. That's $162,000 for the asbestos abatement in Turkey Hill Elementary School. That's part, 4 or 5 of a multi-year process? Yeah. And it's nearing the end, but there's one more, at least one more stage after that, but it's essential. $220,000 for the the removal of a DPW fuel tank, and $116,000 for 2 police cruisers, which are tied to the increase, at least of 1 additional police officer next year. Very, very necessary. And just note that there are 2 big items that were not approved, that are certainly not yet formally approved, and possibly won't be. The engine for a fire truck at $685,000, and the Rescue 2 at around $350,000. Just to give you a sidelight, Chief Sullivan and I exchanged a couple of emails over the last couple of months regarding Engine 4. Engine 4 is, the current Engine 4 is 24 years old. Typically, there's about a 20-year life on this large fire equipment. And so it's on, even as we speak, borrowed time. Engine 4 has had a pump problem. So Chief Sullivan spent $15,500 to repair the existing pump. He could have spent $30,000 to actually replace the pump. He thinks that the repair of the pump, by his reckoning, is going to buy us being the town, about another year's worth of use of this particular piece of equipment. But that's only if it's used sparingly, and it's an estimate. There is an amount of risk here. And he said that the $30,000 pump replacement would have been a little more thorough repair, but he's leery about spending that much money on a 24-year-old vehicle. Because what might happen is the town would end up spending about $15,000 more and not get any more use, not maybe get any more life out of the old girl. So that's where we are right now. Just to put it in a little more context, where the capital planning process has a 5-year window. So in this iteration, we're looking at FY20 through FY24 in annual increments. And so looking out for FY21 through 24, just to narrow the focus on the really large requests, there's 7 large requests I defined as being capital improvement requests of $200,000 or more. The 7 requests total $2.9 million over that 4-year period. It's a lot of money, but that averages about $725,000 per year. That may be manageable when you think back on the fact that not routinely, but for the last few years, the town has been able to fund $600,000 to $800,000 worth of capital requests without borrowing. So it's in the ballpark of actually, it's in that ballpark. So, and the other issue to take into account, this is where it gets a little bit more worrisome, is the building reuse or vertex report. Probably telling nobody anything here, but it covers 6 town properties: Town Hall, Eagle House, TC Passios, the Ritter Building, the Brooks House, and the old primary school. The immediate repairs recommended by the study totaled for those 5 projects, for those 5 buildings, roughly $1.4 million. Now that's non-inflated, so that's if we had jumped on that a year ago. So it's a little more than that now. Now, mind you, the immediate repairs are for correcting some flaws in these buildings and to ensure their longevity. So this is sort of, can be thought of as protecting the town's assets. In addition to which, the other part of the Vertex study has identified longer-term needs of approximately $4.2 million. Karen Brochu did send me her debt schedule, and we're retiring debt gradually over time, so we do have some headroom for actually some regular borrowing in there, and still be at within the debt service policy guideline. But this is a big project. I keep nattering on about it because it's something I would hate to have lose priority, and we just have to start to. I think, my preaching hat on, I think we just have to decide how to go about doing this. So, end of sermon.
Can I comment on that? Am I allowed to comment?
Absolutely.
To your update. Hasn't Chief Sullivan been asking for a new engine for a while and postponing it already for the past couple of years?
That's an excellent question. 2 things. You're right. Chief Sullivan has been asking for various equipment for a while. He actually got a piece of equipment last year, and we had the great good fortune of approving it through borrowing, and then getting this windfall of $1.5 million free cash. And tell me if I'm getting the process wrong. But anyway, we retired we essentially paid for the new engine with the inflow of free cash. But that's something we did not.
No.
Okay.
About possibly amending that vote for the ladder truck.
Yep.
From borrowing a portion to use this year's certified free cash.
Oh, really? Because this year's certified free cash. Okay.
If that were to occur, would occur at
Yeah.
this time.
Okay. All right.
That's not for engine 4.
That would be,
That-
that's the ladder truck.
That's the ladder truck.
Right,
More than this year's capital request.
Right.
But anyway, the end result is the same in that we would have that much less debt service costs, which might open up some opportunities to do some more of this stuff through debt going forward. Good question. The other, just to elaborate on that, in addition, Jack Broderick has pushed all of his major vehicles out 1 year
Yeah.
because he looked at them and he said they've got at least 1 more year worth of service in them. So good for him that he can do that, but that buys us a little more time too.
Yeah. I do appreciate when they try to help us by pushing things out. It's just hard to also have it pushed out, you know?
Well, I think one of the things that I believe helped them with that was that they were able to replace, although I don't think that they have one now, a mechanic. They were able
The
to add.
DPW.
Yep.
Right, so basically that will hopefully also help keep some of the motors running.
That's for the
And I think
DPW, right?
Well, actually, DPW and anybody else who needs access to it. The problem with some of the fire engines or the fire trucks is that they are so old and a little bit more, well, they're probably less complicated, but more complicated to somebody who may not be familiar with them. But part of the whole issue with the funding of the fire apparatus goes back to all of those years of really tightening, a lot of belt tightening. Purchases were really put off. So then all of a sudden, like you're trying to replace all of the vehicles all at once, and it's just too big.
That's too much, yeah.
So I think initially, one of the things that was happening was, I know the previous town manager was trying to set up a schedule to spread them out a little bit so that, like 20 years down the road, you're not in the same situation where everything's coming up for replacement all at the same time.
Right.
So, but yes, and we have been watching the debt service for quite a while to see when that opens up a little bit and gives us some flexibility with, especially some of the bigger items that we're talking about. So, all of that is starting to come to a head now, which is nice. And then hopefully, I don't know how the economy is going to be doing next year. I don't know what's going to be happening in the next several years, but I think at least right now we're getting into a place where we're in a good position to have stuff that's in better shape than it was several years ago, and hopefully we'll be able to maintain it. We won't have to be coming back. How many more years do we have on the debt service for the pavement management? Is that 4 years or 3 years?
Well, no, we,
4-year plan.
Not the plan itself, the borrowing. How far out is the borrowing? Was it 10 years?
the borrowing was 15 years. I
15 years, okay. Okay.
If I may interject here with respect to the spreading out the larger vehicles, one of the things that having a little more headroom on debt allows us to do is since these vehicles come in large lumps, one vehicle could consume the entire capital plan for 1 year. But if you can selectively use debt, you may want to do short-term debt and just spread that out for two or so years, retire that debt, and then get ready to acquire the next one. So you end up spreading them out, like you say.
Right.
But also, at the end of the 5 or so year period, having them available for the town, having a newer fleet available for the town.
Right.
Wash, rinse, and repeat.
Or then something new comes up, and then we're dealing with buildings. All right. Any other committee department reports?
Police, we are meeting again next week,
Okay.
and he asked to meet again in the period when he needs to provide numbers 2-3 times.
Okay.
So I'll be busy.
Okay, very good. The Charter Review Committee met last night. There will be a public hearing on any of the charter changes to date on January 9th. There was also reorganization because Bob Ebersol leaving left a vacancy on the board itself, and also meant that the chair was gone. And Michael Ray Jeffries had been the planning board member, but was replaced by Tanner Cole the last couple of meetings. So there is some turnover on the committee, and so last night we spent a couple of hours going through a number of the changes and re-voting them because there were new members. And we didn't get to any of the controversial stuff. We thought we were just doing the easy stuff, but it still took 2 hours. But we'll see what happens with the public hearing, and we'll get some more information from that, go back, work out the rest of the recommendations, and the plan is still to present the charter with one level of changes, which was basically to make sure that everything addresses any legal issues, typos, just corrections that have with things that have changed over time. The next level was not some substantive changes, but not necessarily seen as controversial, and one of those was the addition of a second town meeting. That most people seem to be supportive of the notion of that, so we don't anticipate a lot of discussion over that, but who knows, we might be wrong, and we'll get to the public hearing, and if that comes up, then we'll, again, go back and revisit that. The controversial items were considered so controversial, or it was just really, there was such a split that on some of the items that the intention is to vote those changes individually so that people will be able to, all right, so one of the questions that was brought forward was, is it the Board of Selectmen or is it the Select Board? Okay, fine, we'll just vote those, just put that out there for a vote. I don't even remember what they are anymore. It was a long night last night. And since we didn't get to them, that's the other reason why I'm not remembering them. But there was discussion of the town clerk, whether the town clerk is appointed or voted. That will be put to vote. There was one item that actually was not voted to move forward, but I think it may be voted to move forward. We'll have to wait to see. That one had to do with the question of whether someone who was a write-in candidate had to achieve a number of votes based on what it would take to pull papers to get your name on the number of signatures required to get your name on the ballot. That one did not pass the supermajority, but we also didn't have a full board when we took that vote, so it may yet pass supermajority to be brought forward, and we won't know until the next time we meet. Those were the big ones, and that's really the only committee report I have, but if anybody has any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them. If not, then I'm happy to move on to minutes. I am happy to, I'm going to assume everybody saw Hannah's minutes.
I have not read them. I just saw them in my
Anybody else
email.
read them?
Yep.
There is an error that I was, they're probably not ready to be voted on unless we vote to amend.
You could vote to amend it. What
Typo.
was the error?
The typo.
It's just a typo.
Okay, so it does not materially change the minutes. So, yeah, we can go ahead and take, we'll take a motion and a vote on them, and then Michelle can abstain unless, like we just can't pass. So do I have a
abstain.
motion to accept the minutes of November the 8th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 And an aye, and we have one abstention. All right, going back to, I did not make the changes I anticipated making in the minutes that Michelle had presented for October the 25th. But I am prepared to just leave them as is, and because there were no material issues that I had with those minutes. So if anyone else has any comment on the minutes that were presented for the meeting of 10:25, I'm happy to take a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And aye. And then Jay had also presented the minutes from April 26th, which were the minutes of a meeting that we had prior to town meeting last year. Almost.
Wow.
And it was actually, it was quite enlightening to go back and read them again, and it was just like, ooh. They looked good, so I will accept a motion on those minutes. Mark has made a motion to approve. Do we have a
Second.
second? John seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that takes care of the minutes. We did the town manager reports. Do we have any public comment from anybody on the committee?
I do. Sorry, guys. No, I'm just kidding. So.
Just kidding, you're sorry.
No. Yeah, exactly. There are 2 spots available to read at the PTO fundraiser that's happening on December 21st for anybody that works for the town or is a town volunteer on a board, committee, commission, whatever. There are 2 15-minute spots, one from 2 to 2:15 and one from 2:15 to 2:30. So if you are interested in helping out with reading, it'd be mostly geared towards the Turkey Hill Elementary School children and primary children. Please email me at hcajda@gmail.com and I could set that up and it would be really helpful and appreciative. Thank you.
I'm looking around to see who's retiring and available at 2 o'clock on a...
I know, I will say that I have Chief Sullivan and Chief Marino, I have a librarian, I have a sewer commission person, Board of Selectmen, and that's it right now, but,
You don't have you?
well, I'm running it, so I'm not gonna.
Oh, all right.
I'm a fill-in if I really can't get these
There you
2
go.
spots
Okay.
done. Prefer not to, though.
Gee, did you check in? You should check in at the Eagle House.
Oh, I should, yes, thank you.
You're welcome. We do not have a meeting scheduled for Christmas week. If you would like to schedule a meeting for Christmas week, we can do that. No. Seeing-
Meeting the police chief also.
You're crazy. All right. So then our next meeting will be January 10th.
January 10th.
January 10th.
Second Thursday in January.
So that would be the night after the public hearing, so on the charter review. So if anybody wants to come to that, that'll be a great good time. Hopefully it'll be here. I think they were also looking into the auditorium in case that might be available, because we know the zoning board typically meets here on Wednesday nights. So next meeting will be January 10th. I hope you guys all have a great holiday season between Christmas and New Year's. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
You too, and so moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I got an interesting
It's not that bad.
today.
Hannah, I got a text from my mother. She'll be happy to read.
That would be awesome.